Hi, this is Zubin Vevaina from A to Z Graphology and welcome to this video. In this one, I would like to explain to you the nature of graphology and what I expect from my students, whether they've connected with me personally or those who are here subscribed to the channel learning new things every day. I want graphology to take up a scientific and a very logical path. It is like how science was in the early 1600s and 1700s. There were countless number of people trying to get answers which were relatively easy to get once you observed and understood how nature works around us, whether it was biology, astronomy, physics. As people started to understand that there are certain laws, rules, and certain patterns in the life around us, and we were able to understand that there is a certain way things go about, science developed from there. Religion at that time was extremely dominating and it tended to stifle science for a long period of time. But as we came to late 1800s and 1900s, and now we are in the new millennium in terms of the technology and the skills, we can see that science has overtaken us and overtaken our lives in the last almost 300 years. And there is kind of a balance between the beauty of logic of science and the unexplained beliefs of religion and spirituality. It's a good balance. It shows that we are human. In the same way, I want graphology to also become a science and not a belief system. As I've explained in my videos earlier, that I don't want you to believe in graphology, I want you to observe, understand, and calculate. Now, we do need great minds in this field, and great minds come with great learning. Great learning comes with a student who has the following points. So, now I'm going to display a certain picture about the certain points which I feel every student needs to have in order to become a better graphologist. You see, graphology is a science, and if we have to make it a science, we need to have people who are strong logically and who question appropriately. So, here are some of the points which I would request each student to implement. Mostly for graphology, you can go ahead and implement it for any other subject, but I would recommend for graphology for now. So, how to be a good student of graphology? The first point is that I highly recommend you to be either empty minded or open minded. Empty minded means like it was kind of like how I experienced graphology when I first went into this skill, that I just didn't know what to expect and I was open to all possibilities. Secondly, you may or may not have doubts. That's completely fine and that's good. Doubts are good. But you must be open minded and at least listen to the teacher who's teaching you. It could be from any school of graphology, it could be an amateur teaching you. But remember, this is a subject which is not commonly found on earth yet. It's not yet considered a science, and many people argue that it could just be some hocus pocus. That's completely understandable. But if we are to make it a science, and as my efforts in linking geometry and graphology and human anatomy are ongoing, eventually it may, and I hope it turns into a registered science. Now, the point is that the next very crucial thing which I would expect every student to have is that you must appropriately question your teacher. If you have a doubt, if something that the teacher has explained to you doesn't seem right or it doesn't click with your mind, then you need to ask the question. And remember that after you ask the question, you must have the capacity and a genuine desire to listen to the answer. Asking an inappropriate question just to check the ego of the teacher or just to throw off the teacher off balance of the topic is not going to serve the purpose of either learning graphology or the teacher's purpose of sharing that knowledge with you. So, please do question the teacher appropriately. Every topic, every sentence should be questioned. And as you question and get the answers, it's completely natural for you to feel good if you get a fantastic answer. Remember, some teachers like to sidetrack you, like how I had experienced initially in graphology, where many of my teachers said that one day you'll understand graphology. Whenever I asked them a question, they would always give me sidetracked or diversion answers. Like, maybe one day you'll understand. Just now you're just a beginner. I hope you understand later on. Now don't ask any questions. First you listen, then you understand. Now the most common thing which I heard from my teachers were, that is the way it is. Learn as you see it, don't ask questions. Now this is a sign of a cult. This is a sign of a student who is not thinking. If you're considering graphology as a science and if thinking is not involved, then you're in trouble. If you just want to learn graphology for just for pastime and you just want to accept whatever the teacher is teaching, then it is completely fine. Don't ask questions, accept what the teacher says, do a bit of analysis, have fun. But if you have the curiosity and that itch to know how things work, then you need to come to the side of the science where questioning is required. It is within the debate of the question and the answer that knowledge is revealed. Neither the teacher nor the student is the owner of the knowledge. They become the channel. They become the lake in which the water of knowledge can reside comfortably. And that comes to the next point, that expect a well defined logical answer from the teacher. If the teacher sidetracks you, if the teacher tells you all types of excuses except for the answer, then you need to be careful of that teacher. Being scientifically sharp is very crucial for graphology right now. Yes, there could be a possibility that there's a question and the teacher doesn't really know the answer and genuinely doesn't know the answer. It is perfectly fine for the teacher to say, I don't know. Like in my class, if a student asks me a question, I love to answer them as much as possible. But there's a limit to my research beyond which I cannot answer certain things. So I directly tell the student that either I will do research upon this and get back to you. It may take a few days, a few months, maybe a year. Or I'll just tell the student, sorry, I don't know. Like let's take for example, forensic graphology is a very interesting branch of graphology where we use the intricacies of traits and certain values of what we see in terms of formations to decipher whether a signature is good or not, or whether a handwriting has been forged or not. But that is not my major focus. I do take up cases, but it's not really what I would like to take it up as a major line of graphology. So when students ask me questions related to that, I directly tell them that I have limited knowledge and limited experience and I can't answer certain questions. It's completely natural for a teacher to not know the answers to all the questions. But if your teacher has an ego battle with you and does not want to accept that they may not have the answers, you are going to be in trouble. A teacher whose ego is bigger than his knowledge is going to give you nothing more than shallow graphology. Alright? So the next point which we are coming to is respect the knowledge more than the teacher. Of course, you must respect a teacher as a human being, just as a genuine human being, you must respect another person. There's nothing special about that. There's nothing to be taught about that. But remember that the knowledge which is flowing is more important than the teacher. How the teacher looks, what is his age, what is his experience. Yes, experience may count, but in graphology, you see, if you understand the concepts, you can gain experience far quicker in terms of practice rather than time. So if you have practiced 100 samples in 5 days, you will get the experience of a 100 sample experienced graphologist. If you take 1 year to analyze 100 people, then you will take much more time to develop your skill. And since this is a skill, How much you practice, that much experience you get. So just keep the knowledge at a higher pedestal compared to the teacher. Now next, I want you to refresh, revise and re-evaluate, question the knowledge of graphology and what you've studied, and don't accept things forever. You see, this is a very evolving science. The nature of understanding a human being is very difficult. Is it easy to solve a mathematics problem whose answer is constantly changing? It's not. It's not easy. In fact, it's not impossible. So, that's what we do when we analyze a writing. We are trying to decipher traits from the handwriting, which gives us the result of understanding the human being. And this human being is constantly changing. So, your knowledge needs to evolve with the time. Maybe what I taught 10 years ago may not be valid now because the society is shifting. There are certain mindsets and certain traits that are constantly evolving. That's why these subjects like psychology, graphology, and all these human mindset related knowledge systems are not easy to be accepted in the scientific community because you see, what we are analyzing itself is constantly evolving, and that is the nature of our human evolution. If we have one consistent science for understanding human personality and character, and if it remains consistent throughout the years, then actually there's something wrong with that, isn't it? So graphology is evolving. Keep connecting with your teacher and try to understand whether traits have changed or not. Maybe what you learned last year could have evolved into something new. So you must keep in touch with your teacher and be open to change, be open to evolution. All right. Now, the last point, which is most important, is practice before preaching. After learning graphology, let's say you learned graphology from some of my videos here, or you connected to me and you learned something from me or from anybody. Before you unnecessarily question your teacher, first practice. Practice will get the real problems out. Practice will get the correct questions out. And when these questions are answered, there's a level of satisfaction which is unbelievable, both for the teacher and the student. So I highly recommend you to practice what you've been taught and then accordingly question the teacher as appropriately as possible. You see, graphology is a life skill. It can be used not only to understand the human being, it can be used for rapport building, it can be used for improving your corporate structure in your company, improving employee and superiors relations. It could be used for improving relations of people at home. You can have improvement in child and parent connections. You could understand the human body in a bit different way. There are innumerable applications of graphology, and it is only defined as much as our research is. Research can be a bit slow because sometimes when we want to understand a certain topic about a certain person or a certain way the mind thinks, it's very difficult to get that one mindset at least 100 times so that we can pick out that trait. All right. So this is about my effort to condition your mind to be a strong and an assertive student of graphology. Now, there are schools of graphology that deal with graphology in a very mild and casual way, and that is perfectly fine. Every school of knowledge is fine. It's like the old Chinese way of martial arts schools. A couple of 100, 200 years ago, maybe older than that, there used to be different schools of kung fu and martial arts. And depending on which school you went to, you were taught a certain style and you were taught to defend yourself. The ultimate goal was self defense. Now, some teachers are better, some teachers are not so good, and some teachers are just ordinary. But either way, the student got benefited based on their requirement and wavelength of understanding. Some students will find the style and the type of graphology which I do in on this channel or in real in terms of my training as a headache. In fact, when I get someone signed up for my advanced level graphology course, I highly warn them that please be careful of this course. This is not a light course. Be extremely particular about whether you really want to do graphology or not. I have rejected so many students who came to learn graphology just for pastime because that's not my line of thought. Of course, I can easily quickly earn my money and enjoy a casual student, but that's not my cup of tea. I want a slightly more serious and more energetic student who wants to question me, who wants to debate, and it's fun. It's fun to have exchange of knowledge rather than just one-way lectures. All right. Of course, there are some people who like a one-way lecture, and they'll say, "Just teach me what you know. I'll say something. I'll say something. I will observe something and I'll say something. Tell me the trait. I'll say this." That's fine. That's perfectly good. But in this channel, in my area of graphology, I want my students to be sharp, and I would really appreciate it if you can evolve into one also. So this is all about how to be a good student in graphology, and maybe this relates to other subjects also, but that is up to you to decide. Thank you for watching this one. I'm sure that there are a few questions that may come up later on. Please connect with me at this email address and I'll be happy to answer your questions. If I do take a bit of time to respond to you, please do have patience. My audience is growing and I do respond to each email personally. Thank you for watching this video and I'll see you in the next one.